Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, and Leonardo Miranda.
Hey there.
Today we talk about Mikey and Nicky, but before any ado, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a like. Mikey and Nicky is a 1976 crime drama written and directed by Elaine May and starring John Cassavetes as a desperate gangster begging his longtime friend played by Peter Falk to help him escape death from the mob. The production ran over its schedule and budget, leading to tensions with Paramount Pictures, who revoked the director's right to final cut. Released in 1976, the film bombed at the box office, which led to May not directing again for a decade, with her director's cut finally screening in 1978. It sure was a long road to get to final shape, but the movie's leading performances paid off to most critics. However, did RWC also enjoy this visit to the good old antics of Cassavetes and Falk? Well, let's find out, shall we? Well, you know what, I have to say, I think Ellen May just, after all this trouble with Paramount Pictures, I have to say that she probably just left the camera on and say, you know, John, Peter, you do whatever you do. I don't know.
Go crazy.
You know, and we're just, following around, and we are following around John Cassavetes and Peter Falk just being friends. I mean, this is not the movie, guys. We are not, these are not characters. These are them, just, on their day-to-day basis, on a night out. I mean, I firmly believe that. So John phoned Peter and said, I'm at this place in this hotel, come and find me, pick me up. All right, he threw the bottle, broke it, and he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This whole interaction, I swear to God, this, it's within the cinematic universe of John Cassavetes completely, this movie, and I love it for it.
Also, I love this film. I think it's amazing. Every time I watch it, I'm even more amazed that it was made. Elaine May is, as you were saying, fascinating. Like the trouble production, it's not just this film. Is I think literally she made 4 films, and maybe not the Heartbreak Kid, but 3 out of 4 films she made were like incredibly difficult in production. Just lots of disputes regarding final cut and regarding finances. The last one she made, which was the one that effectively just killed her directing career, which was Ishtar, a very famous film for being one of the biggest box office bombs of all time.
Is it a bomb narrative-wise as a film?
I really like it, but it's fucking weird. It's really it's a farce. It's a very comedic film. And it's about these 2 wannabe songwriters who are terrible. They write awful music. Okay. They go away from America and go to Ishtar. It's a made-up place in the Middle East, and they become embroiled in a CIA plot to overthrow one of the...
What the fuck? I need to watch that.
I love it, but it's a very divisive film because some people just don't find it funny.
It's weirdly, it's weirdly echoes the interview with James Franco and Seth Rogen in this weird way. And not singers, but reporters who go on a CIA mission to kill a big leader thing. But yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And then A New Leaf, which is our first film, also not as much, but also big problems with final cut and editing. So a lot of her films have this life of, they get made. There's the first cut that just, it's the studio making the cut and she's not happy with it. And then finally, a bit later, the definitive version comes out. And that's what happened with Mikey and Nicky, as you described it.
Yeah.
I think it's just from the beginning, the film is so gripping because it just establishes so well that there's this relationship between these 2 guys is sort of broken. One is calling the other for help, but he doesn't know if he can trust him, and so you're immediately like trying to understand what's the dynamic here, what's the problem with them. And as the film goes, it shows you that these guys are bitter and resentful with each other. And Nicky is just a very toxic guy in many ways. He's not. It puts in the context of like a mob film a dynamic that you feel like exists in any place, which is like these 2 people who are friends, but one of them is just not the best person and mistreats you, and the other guy should probably let go of that person, but he doesn't because he feels some sort of loyalty, but at the same time he's gonna betray him. And so the film is just filled with these contradictions, which is especially in Peter Falk's character, which is he's helping, he's aiding the other guys in killing Nickey. Deep down you also feel like he's trying to see if there's something salvageable there in Nickey's character. And I think by the end, when he's telling him, just run, you schmuck, just run. He's like, he still has a little bit of that. He's like, he wants him to live, even though he doesn't want him in his life. And everyone that interacts with Nickey, it's the same way. His wife, she wants him gone. She's telling him to go away. But then by the end, she's kissing him and she's crying and she's sad that it's sort of, she knows that he's probably going to die and she doesn't want him to die. But he knows that he's a toxic presence and they just go away. And so Nickey is just a fascinating character in how he's very, people clearly are interested in him and he's charming in many ways, but no one wants him in his life because he's just so destructive. And I think that's one of the things that makes the film so gripping, is this central dynamic between the characters. And it is a very, very much a character study, especially almost like a romance-like study of these two people who are no longer compatible, I guess.
No, definitely. I really love the film. I've known the film for a while. I haven't had the opportunity to watch it. On this occasion I had. Now we did a review for the podcast. I think it's exactly what you say. It's this tale about two friends, both attracted to each other, both still having a loyalty to each other, particularly Falk in relationship to John Cassavetes, because John being Nickey, he's the one in need of a friend to help him escape death, right? So Peter Falk being Mikey is the one who really falls on the responsibility to react to that. Should I stay with him, help him, or should I go? What makes me go? Well, the fact that he's toxic. But at the same time, I do feel that royalty. He's the real one with the dilemma here, accompanying this tornado of a person. But really, what I was saying that you were saying is that the film does, that is an interesting aspect of the film, is that they put on this background of a mobster or gangster film kind of quality to it, to essentially give the character of Nickey this pressure of a death, an ending at the end of the road, which could be as well cancer. It could be, it could give him cancer, and that would be the same thing, the lingering question of that. Because also the another film in the film is how, how do you react to that? The impending doom of it. It could be cancer, or it could be like a contract on your head, as it is in the film when he screws up with the robbery, Nickey that is, and then he has the mob after him. And so that's interesting because it's a character, the bizarreness of him that we've been discussing here, how destructive he is, how erratic he is. When Mikey finds him in the apartment and he's doing all this random shit that is so typical of Cassavetes in his own films when he pops up as a character, or his characters, they're all kind of man-childs, in a way. They are these man-childs who have these needs, these desires, who at point A, it's one thing, let's go to the movies. Then he says, you know what? My mother is in that cemetery. I didn't talk to my mother in a long time. Let's go. And just going, and suddenly they are fighting, and you don't feel like it's a fight. You feel like it's somehow making love, in a way. It's two friends kind of having a skirmish and playing around in the dirt. And it's like you're seeing these two little boys inside of them, kind of having a spat. So it's very weird that the range of feelings that he makes you feel. It's so odd that this film is directed by her, because I feel the Cassavetes energy from his own movies in this one, because he borrows so much of that, and Peter Falk being his actual real life friend that he invited to his films a lot as well, really shares of that energy. And it's so, one of the things I really appreciate that he brings from his films to this one is that energy of, it's so over the top, it's so kind of weird, the range of emotions that he goes through, at one point wanting this, at the other wanting that, but at the same time you can read very sincere emotions in it. It's a ride. It's amazing to see him kind of go, and it's like he's his own special effect, like an actor can be his own special effect, and he's his own explosions and firecracker, like he's amazing. I mean, there's nothing like him, I think, in the history of film in terms of acting. He's just hypnotizing in how he carries himself in the scene, and you're so mesmerized by him, like how he falls on a bed, how he falls on the road, how he starts a fight, not start a fight, how he changes opinion. It's so hypnotizing. And in regards to what I was saying earlier, how does this fit in with the story? The very fact that he has a death toll hanging over him, it makes him have it real fits very well in the story, that the kind of erratic behavior, because that impending doom of death makes him as a character want different things. Like he wants to enjoy life in this one night with this one friend at his best. So hence him wanting several things. Of course, there's his paranoia working at one level. I don't want to go to the airport because what if there's a bunch of guards there and the mob is going to find me and they're covering the exits? Let's do something else. So he wants to do something light. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the cemetery, visit my mom. So suddenly we have this character that brings us, we are kind of us by us, the audience, we kind of fill in the shoes of Mickey. You know, Mickey's kind of the vehicle for us, the audience, accompany this schmo, this crazy guy who wants to experience a plethora of things at the same time. And a lot of those things are odd and cruel. At one point, he uses this girl who functions as some kind of prostitute for the mob and his friends at the mob somehow. I don't know. You know, you kind of hear his stories of how things work in his life, and you don't know what to believe in him, because he says she's a psycho and whatnot. I mean, I don't know what to believe. You know, is she a real psycho? But that ambiguity about what's the truth of what he says, it really works into the strangeness of it all. Kind of, how much of a psycho is she? How much of a leeway should you have with her? And then you're like, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have any leeway at all. You know, she's a fucking human being as well. I mean, what am I saying? I mean, the very scene where she's kind of, Cassavetes is having at it with her, when he has a wife, it's horrible. I mean, like, what are you doing? And then Peter Falk, you know, Mickey is also there in the room, and he has a wife, and he tries to have it off with her as well, you know, kind of like Cassavetes says, you know, I warmed her up for you. And then he gets in there, tries to steal a kiss. They go out, and you feel horrible about these two men. I mean, what were you doing to that woman? And suddenly, out of the fact that the woman, kind of this lady that Nickey was with, trying to have it off with her, and then trying to have Mickey, you know, have sex with her as well. Out of that scene, the fact that the lady, you know, refuses Mikey, but doesn't refuse Nickey into having sex, that leads to these two friends fighting finally, close to the climax of the film. And that's very interesting to see so late in the game, because Mikey has been for so long supporting him and trying to make him live, trying to keep him on the straight and narrow, trying to either get him to the airport or the train or whatever out of town. And suddenly something different happens, and it really works into the energy of the film in a different way that keeps it going in a surprising way. I must say, I say this because, you know, I just come out of a film festival where a lot of the short films, some of the short films are good. The ones that I didn't like so much was because more often than not, I just felt that when they are too long, they don't know how to end themselves. And then they just lose tension very, very soon in the game. They become uninspired. The acting is uninspired. The acting is just this thing of stealing from Bresson, which I think is an excuse to not being able to direct in the actors, because especially in Portuguese shorts, you know, you have this thing where the actors are, you know, there's just this one note, monochord way of acting, way of presenting the shorts. The blocking is so. I just think that, you know, you need to justify. It cannot just be the, you know, oh, it's contained, oh, it's contemplative for contemplative's sake. I think, okay, that's fine, but don't lose the tension. I think, and losing the tension doesn't mean to be obvious, to be whatever. It just needs, the film needs it. It needs intrigue. And more often than not, a lot of shorts lose that. They become kind of this uninspired things. And this movie is very free in its narrative. Mikey and Nicky is very free in its narrative, very spontaneous. It's not for everyone, but it doesn't lose the grip on tension and the contradictions of character. There you go. And so when that surprise happens of Mikey confronting Nicky about how horrible he is, how he's always, you know, how he listens to him talking with the big boss, and them laughing at him for being the echo guy. He kind of has this joke name that supposedly Nicky gave to him. you really start feeling, you really start seeing another side to this friendship, which is sometimes what friendships have. You know, you are friends with somebody, but you know, you also have insecurities, vulnerabilities regarding the other person, and things you don't say, things you would like to say but you don't say, and that's one of the most kind of relatable moments in the film. I think that, and it just it crumbles so fast with him fighting in the middle of the street, falling onto the ground. It's a very interesting to watch. And I'm looking at the movie. I'm also watching at the movie with immense envy because I'm like, I don't know how you write this stuff, because these dialogues are pure gold. I mean, you must be joking. You must be like, a great part of this must be spontaneous or improvised on the spot because it's so
I was
good.
reading Jonathan Rosenbaum's review. He loves the film, of course, and he was talking about how the first time he watched it, the film was like not very good because the cut is just full of continuity errors, and it's just like at its center it was still good because the tension is there and the characters are there. But then he watched the next version and it was just much better. And he mentioned,
Do you mean the final cut?
The
that
final
we just
the one we
described?
watched?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
And then he mentions that a lot of people thought the film was just like mostly improvised, or it was more of a, because she also shot a ton of footage, like an insane amount, like 1.4 million feet of film, which is
Jesus, wow.
like insane. That's like the first fact on IMDb, is that she shot
Uh-huh.
1.4 million, whereas Gone with the Wind was like 1/3 of that, I think. And it's a much longer film. So yeah, I also mentioned that most people thought it was improvised. And then the script started circulating and people noticed, okay, no, most of it was written already. Most of this is not improvised, which I think, yeah, makes sense, because I think there's such a strong emotional hook to everything that you would need to write a lot of this dialogue for it to flow together. But I think also it probably was a matter, this I don't know, but I assume it was also a matter of doing sort of what Cassavetes does, which is rehearse a lot and then write the rehearsals and write what you come up with the actors, and then you act that on camera. So
Well,
it's
you
not
know, Mike
improvised,
Lee does the exact same thing. You know, he rehearses a lot and then he writes what he finds and rehearses. It's an interesting approach.
but it's also
Actually,
expensive. I
yeah,
imagine,
yeah,
because
true.
you spend a lot of time rehearsing,
Especially if you're doing
rewriting.
a studio movie
Yeah,
with Paramount.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about Cassavetes, but I mean, Peter Falk also amazing. Just for me, two of the best actors ever. Just
Yes.
one with each other, they're perfect. Their chemistry is incredible. And yeah, that scene you were talking about, for me, is just one of the best. When he finally lets out, and he has that look and his eye. I love like his the eye that moves by itself.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
His left
incredible.
side.
And he's so resentful. He's so bitter. Like, you call me the Echo, and there's not I don't know. They don't necessarily like the big scream. It's just like matter of fact describing how how he undermines him to the big guy to be cool, and it's like it's a fascinating look. I don't feel like I've ever seen a film do this, like take the mob context and examine a relationship that is so specific to the dynamic of that mob context, but that is also so universal, which is, you're trying to be cooler to the other guys. What about me? I've been here since we were kids, and then you put me away to be with the cool guys, And then I love how that comes back when he's with Resnick again, talking about how they let Nickey get away, and Resnick starts like, you get on my nerves, Mikey, which is exactly what Nickey said, and he's like, I'm sorry you don't like me.
Yeah.
Then
he said it twice.
Yeah. And I think that's what another thing about the film that makes me so impressed is like, it's very tense, as you were saying. It's like it doesn't never lose its emotional tension. It's always developing and brewing until it explodes. But it's also very sad. I find the film very sad because it's two guys who used to be best friends. It's these two people who have a shared history, and that you feel have that shared history, and the film develops that very well. But there's a breakdown of that. There's a breakdown of trust and of the love that they once felt. And so the film is constantly, I feel, just very sad. And I think that scene with Nell, the prostitute, as you were saying, it's probably the peak of that sadness and uncomfort. It's very uncomfortable. There's a discomfort to the film in many of the interactions and the moments, because you feel, it's like, I shouldn't be watching this. These two should be, I don't know, they should not be together, and they should not be with this woman. And it's just very fucked up in a amazing way. Like, it's in the way that you want in a film to feel when you're exploring something that is so tense, like this relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And well, many points there. Really agree. That scene is amazing because not only is kind of venting at his friend, lashing out, but there's also a little taste of liking him and not being so rough, not being so harsh. You know, he's smiling when he's angry, because you mentioned he doesn't shout. He does, you know, of course, he raises his voice and etc. But he's smiling at the same time. I even wonder if there's a play in editing with using other moments in the actual filmed on the moment reactions to certain things said, because this is typical in editing. Sometimes a character saying a line, you know, that was not the line that he said. You superimpose that line on the moment that he's saying, particularly in this film. You mentioned the continuity errors in this film. This is a very volatile film where, more often than not, she puts lines in places where there weren't lines. You can clearly see the character not talking, but because there is a rough quality to the film, we don't mind. And actually, she takes a lot of moments to her advantage, because when the characters are in shadow or not, you can see very well because they're walking fast or whatever. You can kind of accept the line because you don't see the mouthing so good. So that's interesting. Visually speaking, the film at its beginning, the way it opens, it's one of the weirdest openings I've ever seen in my life, because the first shot is a shot of a door, not particularly well composed, not organized, has Kurosawa. It's kind of it's there. It's a door in a very tight shot of and then you have the reverse shot of that. The next shot is the reaction of kind of Cassavetes, his face, beard on, completely sweaty, and in this shabby room hotel. And he's often filming that room, in that scene, waiting for Peter Falk, next to a wall, to the wall where the bed is next to, and so he always feels like there's this motif of filming him in that room while he waits for his friend to come and help him out escaping death, or filming him kind of next to the wall. You have the camera very near to the wall, next to the bed, and him kind of sliding into the wall like crazy, you know. Like, there's always this thing where he's always on the verge of collapsing, of kind of on being attached to that. I'm not going to leave in this place. I'm just here. You know, he's even afraid of going to the window or going next to the door. You know, any entrance, any possibility of someone entering and killing him you really feel the fear. And that's really what's translating in that moment. And it's so weird, because you have, for example, you have the shot of the door, the first one. Then you shot Cassavetes, and there was this clear motion of him that is not included in the film, of him going up in frame, but supposedly, you know, coming, you know, from lying down in bed to coming into frame. Oh shit! There you go, the cat cue. It's kind of edited in a weird way, because you don't see him coming into frame. You know, he's already there. It's kind of a weird shot, like, what am I watching? You know, John Cassavetes' face. It's weird. He cuts certain actions midway, and then you have, you know, him waiting for Peter Falk and being always shot, you know, next to that wall in a kind of disjointed way. Yeah, and then when Peter comes into the hotel, knocks on his door, there's far too kind of negative space below his feet, and his head is almost cut off. I'm thinking, what is this? He's not very well composed, but, you know, I actually don't mind, because it feels like it's not completely wrong. It's not right to film this way somehow, because it's
rough
very
film, stylistically.
rough.
I think when you have
But yeah, it lives in that.
On rewatch, I didn't even think about those things anymore. But yeah, on first impact, it was very like, this is wrong. Like, this is right. It feels like it wasn't well made. But then, as you watch the film and you realize it's such a rough film stylistically.
Yeah, like the very narrative, the character
sense.
performances.
Yeah.
blend in with that language of the visual. So you're like, fuck it, this is the ambience, so I get it. And it lives in that middle ground between being not quite right, but it's okay. And because you have all those other elements in the narrative, in the performances, it works. And yeah, it's amazing. All I have to say, you know, you can talk about Peter Falk all night. Yeah, it's pretty, you know, I need to get you some half and half. You need to eat this. You need to eat this. You do it. You do. I don't want to. I don't want to. And it's just, you know, it's just these moments are amazing. Him going to the coffee shop, you know,
Yeah.
that whole argument between do you have cream, do you have coffee, you know, with the man kind of selling it, and it just comes to a boiling point, jumps there and starts having a fight with him. Everything ends up with a fight. There's just this great bravado, manhood, power kind of at its most boiling point and breaking that always ends up in a fight in Cassavetes movies, and this one in particular is so kind of entertaining to watch, but also very, you know, it's not superfluous. It's to do with kind of the manhood and the insecurities of manhood, the little things about preconceptions about manhood that really come to life in Cassavetes movies and in this one as well. There's something very intriguing about the fact that the boiling point for Mikey, the Peter Falk's character, being a woman, being with a woman, that is very revealing because, you know, when you were a teenager, and I've been reading about some of these things, you know, kind of in relationship to other writings that I've been making, which is to no surprise because we know this in our DNA, kind of growing up, is that, you know, manhood, when you were a teenager, becoming, you know, an adult and all that, kind of wanting to get your independence and kind of applying that what was the teenagehood of these two guys, you know, Mikey and Nicky, and them growing up together. It really passes through this, you know, manhood is really about being aggressive, being dominant. You know, when you are in high school, you are physical and you know how to play soccer, or physically, and you are aggressive. You know, you establish your presence to get attention and to be a man. You know, like a Cassavetes character, or you are a little sissy. You are a girl. You know, you are a flower. You know that there's that silent language that then creates these stupid guys, or even if you aren't stupid, just someone who is very manipulated and hurt by this, you know, that this prejudice that is within the language of manhood, has within girlhood. There are these things that a girl should be or not be, or a man should be, right? So that's one of the interesting things to see in a silent way, an unspoken way, in the language, the bodily language of these characters. One of the things that establishes manhood is, of course, sex. You know, the dominance over the other sex, right? If you went out with a girl, then of course you are now a man. You know, that's I think that's what it's the tipping point somehow in the very deepest, darkest places of these two men. You know, that's the thing that gets to their insecurity. I didn't get the girl, you got the girl. Why? You know, and then there's mockery. Why did you mock me to the cool guy, to the big boss? You know, there's all that language prevailing. Of course, I don't talk about it directly, but it's a lot to do with that. And and you see in the way that whenever to get out of patience, whenever to get angry with somebody or with themselves, it always ends up in some kind of a fight. Everything needs to be established with a fight. Like the bus driver, actually the bus driver is that famed actor from Blood Simple.
Yeah, Emmett Walsh.
It was a cool kind of like little entrance from him that I was not expecting. So poor guy, you know, he was kind of pulling to a fight with Cassavetes. But yeah, it's very interesting to watch his films because of that.
I think that is one of the central ideas of the film, is manhood and what it is to be a man. I think that's why the context of being a mob film makes a lot of sense, because it's a very masculine environment, and there's always like this trying to establish yourself as the alpha, as the big guy, for the big guy, and you know, there's lots of masculine posturing in that context. And yeah, that scene with the woman clearly establishes also that insecurity of Peter Falk. Like, he even says that thing of, because Nicky says, "Oh, she has sex with anyone. She'll do it with anyone." And then Mikey is like, "Oh, anyone but me." And then they start fighting.
yeah, exactly.
And then he breaks his watch, which is his father's watch. And I love how she reveals information so like just bit by bit as the film goes by.
Matter
Like
of
by
fact.
the end, yeah, when he's talking with his wife, and you think, well, why this scene now? What is the importance? And he starts describing his his brother Easy who died, and he then brings it back to the watch, and you understand that there's like clearly an unresolved problem that he has with his father. He feels like, because he says that his mother preferred him, Mikey, but his father clearly loved Izzy a lot, and so by what he's saying, you feel like he's very insecure about the way his father felt about his brother's death, and that if maybe the father thought, I would rather Mikey died instead of Izzy. And I think that's like such a powerful suggestion that then makes like the
Wow.
rest of the film even
Yeah.
more even stronger, because you understand that it comes from that childhood thing, that insecurity of not being wanted by your father, but not being as loved by your father. That's why he has these insecurities and these bitternesses with Nicky, and the way Nicky treats him is also like very dismissively. And I think it's a film that's always bringing new information up to the very last minute, and it's always bringing a new characterization to the characters. I think it's so well made, so well done, in
And
my
to that
opinion.
effect of character, I must say that the wife of Mikey in that final scene really surprises, at least in the sense of their dynamic of
Yeah,
relationship. She is so much a character of the background throughout the film that then when they finally meet at the end, when he returns home to her, and you see how they operate, it's one of the best scenes of marriage, let's say, of a wife and husband in a room and seeing their relationship, how it works, that I've seen on screen. On screen, just in matter of the writing and the dialogue and how the blocking is made, because you can see that these people don't know much about each other.
yeah, exactly.
It's so sad that he's in this thing, and it's just, it infuses, it is working on so many levels, that scene, that matter of his background with his father and who he is as a character, of course, as a man, and how that translates into his what happened with Nicky, and the frustration that of Nicky destroying the watch, but also the fact that this guy, he puts himself in this place in a pedestal of honor, because I'm not like you. When I go out, I call my wife. Okay, I'm not like you. I'm a good guy. That's that comparison effect from Mikey to Nicky. But the very fact is that you try to have it off with this prostitute, this lady, when you have a wife, and then apparently you spend a lot of time away from home and you don't even know each other, and she's not even particularly interested. Her attention span is the most amazing thing in that throughout the conversation. Like, oh yeah, your brother. Like, like she just, they're so disconnected. God damn it, this movie really, it makes me envy the writing, because it's so good. It's so good how it is working at these different levels.
For me, something I felt a little more this time around was that the wife is almost like there's a hint of fear in her. Like because you don't know what's the context of this relationship, and you know that she's helping him in certain regards with the killing of Nicky. He gives her the address to then give the killer, and she knows about what's going on more or less. And so, to me, when she's talking to him at the end, there's a fear of like, who is this guy? I don't know. I felt that a little bit this time, but yeah, but it's an incredible scene when he gets a little like, I just told you, he lost his
Yeah,
hair.
yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And similarly to Ran, just to connect it, like it's there's not really heroes necessarily in this film. It's just Mikey seems is the most hero-esque guy purely
Noble, yeah,
because
morale.
because you feel for him a lot more, but he's very flawed too, and clearly like he's still a mobster, a criminal, clearly hanging out with some wrong people. Yeah, and his actions are so ambiguous. I never know quite, is he trying to get Nicky into safety? Is he trying to get him killed? I feel like he's seeing what he feels. If he dies, he dies, but if he gets away, he gets away. I think it's such a troubled guy, troubled performance by Peter Falk. It's like he wants him to be dead, but he also wants to have enough time to confront him, but he doesn't want to confront. Like all these contradictions exist within the character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes characters amazing. Nickey too. They're full of contradictions and ambiguities. 1 minute they're angry, the other they're laughing. Like the scene, or in the scene in the cemetery, where they're discussing death and what comes after life. And one believes, the other doesn't, but there's only one of them, the one who doesn't believe, who is respectful of that place. And like Peter Falk walks around every time he passes a grave, he's like, excuse me.
Like, yeah, but I love the scene where they're both next to Nickey's mother grave, and they're like, Mishnah,
yeah.
you know, like,
Nickey, you're making me forget the Kaddish.
You're making me forget the Kaddish. And he's so hurt. Good. Like, you're making me forget the Kaddish. You're making me forget the Kaddish. Oh my God, it's so funny.
And there's moments where the film is like, because Elaine May mainly made comedies, so this film is atypical in the sense that it's clearly much more serious and stern and a sad film, intense. But there are moments where the way she cuts from one scene to another, that's just like, it's jarring in a almost comedic way, like when Peter Falk jumps the counter and starts harassing the man, and then it cuts to him entering the hotel but slipping and then getting up, and like and even by the end when they're going after Nickey and they're in the car, and there he is, and they start driving around, and then that's not him, and then it cuts. It's just,
true.
I think there's lots of it's not a comedy at all, but I think in the timing of the cuts, a lot of time, that's where you see the instinct of a more comedic director.
What do you think about the ending? Because I think surprisingly the ending, and actually, is the most Martin Scorsese-esque of it all. You know, it's where you see the blood splattering and Nickey dying by the door.
It's daylight.
I think it's a great moment of release of tension, and you know, you have on the other hand Mikey putting all those chairs and listening to the murder while not being there. But somehow that final shot of Mikey there on the floor, I was like, I need a little bit more. And it cuts and black and credits. I was like, I didn't quite. I love the moment, the scene as it's done, but I need just an aftermath, something with Nickey, just a little moment maybe of silence in the kitchen. I don't know, just, you know, a little epilogue. You understand? I was a little bit it's abrupt.
Yeah, but it's not Ran, the final shot of Ran, like with the blind boy standing in that
sure.
It's a striking last shot. This one doesn't really have it's just, it kind of fizzles out and ends and fades out. Yeah, could have a stronger image, but I don't know. I think it works because of the moment, and how it cuts. You know, the shots then cuts to Mikey as well. It doesn't cut just to Nickey getting shot. It's like in the sadness of him just telling the killer, please wait. Like he wants to talk to Mikey, and he's telling the guy who's gonna kill him to wait. He's like, you're gonna die, brother. And I also think it's very interesting as a choice to have the wife be the intermediary between Mikey and Nickey in that moment, because it's like he can't even talk to his friend in his final moments.
That's all for today, folks. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and Facebook pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.